Welcome to Industry on Blast, the podcast that takes you on a thrilling journey into the hidden depths of secrets, deception, and untold stories. Hosted by Dr. Marlene Carson, a fearless advocate and survivor, this show is your gateway to the shocking truths and captivating narratives that lie beneath the surface.
What happened? Okay, I don't know what happened. I'm going to try that one more time. Hold on one second.
Welcome to Industry on Blast, the podcast that takes you on a thrilling journey into the hidden depths of secrets, deception, and untold stories. Hosted by Dr. Marlene Carson, a fearless advocate and survivor, this show is your gateway to the shocking truths and captivating narratives that lie beneath the surface. Get ready to unveil the secrets of the industry and hear from special guests who have experienced it firsthand. This is Industry on Blast.
Welcome to tonight's show. I am Dr. Marlene Carson, and I'm super excited that you all are with me here tonight. I'd like to welcome our prestigious guest once again in the persons of Tabethia Porter, Charlotte Williams, Danielle Smith, Lisa Gray, and LaQuisha Richardson. Welcome to the show, ladies.
Thank you so much.
Y'all can talk while y'all sitting there all like what?
Thank you. Good to be back here.
Thank you. So I don't know what happened just now where we had some issues with the Wi-Fi. It don't ever do that. I just want my Wi-Fi never ever does that. So let's hope and pray that we don't make me pray the technology prayer on y'all today, because I will do that. Okay. We don't have them kind of issues. But so tonight's episode, I'm super excited about it. I do want to do a recap on last week's show. We discussed the legacy of lies and why we keep those lies secret and how we have been protecting perpetrators while victims have been suffering in silence. And so tonight we're actually going to jump into one of our guest stories, and we're really going to dive into the intricacies of how this happens and what it does to the core, to the person, to the young kid, because she was a kid, and most victims are kids when they are sexually assaulted or abused, specifically by a family member. So tonight we're going to support our sister. We're going to encourage her. We're going to love on her as she begins to tell her story. And we're going to ask her questions as well. If you have a question that you would like to ask, drop it in the chat. And we got somebody monitoring the chat. So just drop it in the chat. We'll make sure that we get to your question. So, oh my gosh. We call her Tibby. Yeah, her name is Tabethia, but we call her Tibby. Tibby, welcome tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Are you ready?
As ready as I'm going to be. Yeah.
All right. So we're not going to delay. We are not going to delay. This show's going to be an hour tonight, so we're not going to delay. We're going to jump right in. Tabithia, I'd like for you to tell us a little bit about who you are. You don't have to talk about where you were born or anything like that, but who you are today. Who are you?
Who I am today. I have been redeemed by the blood of the Lamb, first of all. I have to put that first, because I for sure would not have been able to make it back from where I've been without that. I'm a published author, and I'm a promoter. I'm a singer as well, and I write plays. So I'm just kind of dibble-dabble. I'm in the arts, completely into the arts from all facets, from dance, music, and production standpoint.
I absolutely love. Let me tell y'all something. I've had the privilege of seeing some of the productions that she has. When I tell y'all, them dancers, girl, they be twisting and turning, and they be doing the thing for real. And she has trained them well. And what's so powerful about Tibby in the entertainment space, a lot of the people that she's worked with have been victims, have been in foster care. Is that correct? Tell us a little bit about that. Tell us about that.
Yes, ma'am. Well, my mom was a foster parent for 40 years, and she fostered over 500 kids. during that span of time. And so we had our own way of bringing them to Christ and introducing them to the arts. So when they came into my home, I was a licensed foster parent as well as my mom. So they were drug in by one activity or another. You're going to sing, you're going to dance, you're going to recite.
You're going to do something, huh?
You're going to do something, you're going to act. And so willingly, 95% of the times the kids engaged. And what was nice about that is some of them found giftings in them that they did not have, that
That's
tapped
powerful.
into those gifts, stirred those gifts up. And I worked with boys in particular, some of which were gangbangers, and introducing them, some of them, to the arts changed some of their lives. I literally saw some of them put their bandanas down at the altar and want to change their lives. And then to dabble into the arts. Well, you want to be a rapper? Well, you have to command the English language. So you can't just rap. And so we started cultivating those young people and just kind of stirring up the gifts and trying to wrap around them and support them in their new quest of using the arts as a behavior modification program.
Mm-hmm. You know what's so powerful about you saying stirring up the gifts? And it wasn't like you was in church speaking in tongues, laying hands and all that, but it was powerful in this application of stirring up the gifts in these youth and allowing them to see something within themselves that they didn't see before. So kudos to you. So now let's jump into your story. Tell us about what happened with you around age 11. Is that right?
Yes.
Tell us. Let's start from that point.
Okay. I was sexually abused at the age of 11, and I was sworn to secrecy
by who?
The perpetrator.
No. Not the night sister.
Okay.
By who?
The perpetrator was.
Let me ask you this: do you tell it in your book?
Yes, I absolutely do.
Tell it here then. If you tell in your book,
I absolutely do. So the perpetrator was my father, who was a deacon in the church. And
so let's stop right there. See, you can't. Let me tell you something. You can't drop bombs like that and then want to skip on. So because I think, and I do the same thing, Tibby, to be quite honest. But I realize when we're talking to people who've never heard your story, they got to take a breath. Like, you was perpetrated. You was what? By your who? By your biological father. Yeah. So go ahead. How y'all feel about that, ladies? What is your response to that?
Well, what I see before me is a powerful woman of God. But hearing what you shared, my heart feels for the 11-year-old girl.
Come on.
Who experienced what you would have had to experience with that being your biological father. And then we cannot fast forward the fact that he was a man of the cloth. Mm. And so many things are tied into that.
Mm. Yeah. Danielle?
So, unfortunately, you're not alone.
Wow.
And
wow. I'm sorry.
Definitely for, just like Lakeisha said, that, being a man of the cloth, we talked about that last week, how we have to hold them accountable. Mm-hmm. Because I say, fortunately, unfortunately, you're not alone, because somebody else out there, somebody out there has gone through it, mm-hmm. and possibly by the hands of your father, someone else has gone through it, because that's what statistics say.
Right.
So yeah, fortunately, unfortunately, you have a bond with them because they've gone through the same thing with the same person. But dang, is that the sisterhood we want to join?
No. That is not the sisterhood we want to be a part of. Lisa?
I just wanted to say that I think it's so amazing that she's willing to share her story and willing to take away any shame or guilt so that others can do the same, so that others can feel the same freedom that she now feels. Mm-hmm. Because we know that it wasn't an overnight process. Okay.
Hmm.
No,
Hmm.
it couldn't have been. It couldn't have been. But
Hmm.
now that you're here, now that you have crossed over into this other part of your life, now that you've, um, I'm going to say, even in terms of just an analogy with the book, now that that chapter is over, and you've been able to process it with the Lord, now you can talk about it. And I think it's so important that, because there are so many who have never told anyone else, let alone to put it in print. So
Yeah.
I applaud you.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Wasn't easy.
Charlotte?
I feel so grateful to God and honored just to know Tibby. And it's difficult. This situation is difficult to even wrap your brain around, and to
Mhm.
really think about things like that happening to children.
Yeah.
And so for me, I'm a very visual person. Sometimes when I hear things, I get a picture in my head that is very difficult to get rid of.
Mhm.
And with that being said, um, I really, really admire you, Tibby, for getting to this place in your life where you can talk about it, because you don't have to visualize it, you experienced it. And
Mhm.
that is just incredible to me, that you're sitting here today, um, like the Bible say, clothed and in your right
Come
mind,
on.
and able to talk about this. That is just so incredible. And
Amen.
I'm just awed at you doing
I just want to
Yeah.
add one other thing, and that is, it's so important because now we're understanding that we have to break generational curses. And
Mhm.
the only way to do that is to speak on it. They
Mhm.
have to be exposed. They
Yeah.
have to come to the light, because otherwise they continue to fester and
Yeah.
perpetrate.
Yeah.
So I thank God for this.
You know, when I went on earlier and I just did a little commercial about Tibby's story, and I said this story needs to be a Netflix docuseries
Mm.
for real, because there's so much in this story. Can you, anyone that's not talking, can you
what.
mute other than Tibby? Charlotte, can you mute, please? Um, that there's so much to this story
That's not it.
that I want to really get into the mindset.
In the living room.
Tibby, you good? Okay. I want to get into the mindset. Can you take us back into to the 11-year-old?
Up until that point, I was a normal 11-year-old. I grew up in the church, went to church on Sunday, ushered. I was on the usher board and in the choir.
What grade were you
Uh,
in?
I was in the fifth grade,
So what school did
and
you go to?
I went to Clarefield Elementary in
And so
Columbus.
let me ask you this. So when you were in school, did any of the teachers identify any the change in your behavior? No?
No, absolutely no. Absolutely no.
You know what? Wait, hold on one second. I will say this. Sometimes you have to think about, at your age, you may have not realized that they did.
That's true. That's true.
Because now that I know, my teacher helped me, but I didn't realize it until I was 41. I
How
had
old
a
were you when
breakthrough.
it happened? When
I
your
was
teacher breaking
4.
up? You was 4?
I
Wow.
was 4. So I put a pin in that, because sometimes we don't, when we think back to our memories, we're thinking about our memories at that time, and now we're processing it as an adult. But there was movement that a teacher possibly could have done, but one, back then they were not mandated to report anything.
They weren't?
They no Ohio teachers just
Wow.
got mandated in the 2000s.
Hmm.
Just Ohio, not, we're not
Wow.
going to talk about other states.
Wow.
Teachers were not mandated to report abuse, and they're still trying to learn how to report it.
Wow.
These teachers are not equipped. You make them, you mandate them to report, but then you're not equipping them on what to look for and how to report and all
Okay.
that kind of stuff.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
anyways, I'm so sorry, I didn't want to interrupt it, but I had to think about that teacher. I was starving. I didn't get a meal all the time, but I was teacher's pet. Listen, and I helped her to do everything, clean the boards, put the food away, all that kind of stuff. But I didn't help her put the food away until I wasn't getting a meal.
Wow.
When I thought about it, when I took time to think
Okay.
about it, when I was
Okay.
actually at a teacher's conference and this teacher was talking about how she feeds these children and she's crying, how she feeds these children and how she does their hair and all this kind of stuff. And I broke out crying because I was like, oh my God, this is my story. I remember when my teacher started leaving food out. I wasn't allowed to put the food away until later. So when I put those two things together, they were not mandated, so they didn't have to help. But when we think about these teachers that do help, right? They do, and they have to do it because then they don't want the backlash coming to their home and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? And they don't know what to do. So all I know to do is to help her here while she's here in my care. So I'm gonna, do something.
That's a good point.
While she's here in my care, I'm not. What was it, Mr. Carter?
Yeah, Mr. Carter.
I'm not Mr. Carter.
Lean on me, Mr. Carter.
Yeah. I'm not going to the house. You know what I mean? So this teacher could have. I just want to put that caveat out there.
That's a good point. And I'm just thinking about, I didn't realize how much the laws have changed that teachers now have to mandate. I didn't know that. I didn't know that at all.
Along with ministers.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're definitely mandated reporters for sure. So as you are 11 years old at your elementary school, this happens. You don't know if anyone really recognized the change in your behavior or not. What happened next? I'm knowing I'm trying not to tell what happened next. So you tell us what happened.
Well, I tried to navigate as best as I could for 11-year-old. Yeah. And of course, back then, I think that teachers and leaders didn't really know how to identify what that behavior looked like or the possibilities of what it could look like back then. So, they could have seen a behavior that look a little askew and maybe not been able to attach it to anything that made sense to them back then. But for me, I tried to be as normal as I could during the school time, and that was when I was with my friends and I felt safe. And so I could be myself, be my normal self. The terror didn't really happen until the walk home from school because I knew. Well, my mother worked second shift. And so I knew that 2:30 she was leaving for work around the time that I get in from school. So she would be gone. And so by the time I would stick my key in the door, I was trembling every day because I knew he would be there or on his way home from work and she was gone. And so my terror started before anything physical happened to me. It was every day on the way home from school. I was totally petrified. I didn't tell for 5 years. From the ages of 11 to 16, I kept the silence that he ordered me to because I was told that if I did say anything, that my mother would be harmed. And of course, she was my everything. And I was the only child, didn't have siblings to tell. And so that just left me speechless. So I didn't tell. I didn't utter a word, not even to my childhood best friend.
Wow. And so there were some times that you tried to run away from the chaos. What happened how old were you when you ran away and what happened?
I think I was about 14 or 15. And and for me, I didn't consider it running away, but I guess it really was. I was just trying to escape. I just needed to get some space and I needed to talk to God. And at that age, talking to God meant you had to be at the church. And so
you ran away and where did you go?
I went to the church and I broke in.
Who breaks into church?
I
That part of
don't
the
know.
story is like so funny to me when a kid breaks into church, because most of the time when we see children run away, it's like a stigma on their name, like they're just trying to be fast, they trying to be grown. But you ran away and ran to the church and broke into church.
I did. I broke into church.
Wow.
And of course, it was misinterpreted like I was being fast or I was being promiscuous because I
Yeah.
was gone overnight. I didn't come back home. And it did kind of look like I may have been doing something I wasn't supposed to, but that wasn't the fact. When I got there, I felt a sense of peace that came over me and I felt safe. And
Wow.
so I went to the altar, which had always been the place that we go to cast our cares on the Lord, is at the
Yeah.
altar.
Yeah.
And so I went to the altar and I laid there and I screamed and I hollered and I yelled
Wow.
and I talked to God and until I was exhausted and I went to sleep right there on the altar.
Wow. How long did you stay in the church?
2 days.
Wow. And
It
then they
was during
found
the
you?
week. No, I went back home. I
Okay.
went back home. And then at that point in time, it looked like, maybe I had been frisky or did something that I wasn't supposed to do. And so I tried to give the explanation that I had been to church. I'm not quite sure if that was believable.
Okay.
So
Okay. So what part of your story do you want the audience to know tonight, Tibby?
the biggest thing that I would want to express is that when God comes on the scene, everything changes. My place, my life, my total existence was dark. It was black. I had a sense of hopelessness, even though I knew I had gifts and there were things I felt bubbling inside of me. I just felt like I couldn't totally execute things to my fullest ability. There was just a roadblock or something that kept me from being my best and doing my best. And it was the trauma. And I guess back then people didn't really have a good understanding of what trauma was and what it could do to you. And certainly I didn't at that age. And so
So
my way
let me ask you this question. So from 16, you told your mother at what age?
at 16,
So at 16, you tell your mother, and what happened?
she lost it. Um,
Okay.
she was very angry, very upset, very hurt, and in the place of just, it wasn't that she didn't believe it, but she was just like, is this real? She just
What
couldn't
did she
believe
do
it.
to him?
She got a gun,
Mm-hmm.
and her plan her plan was to take his life. That was her
Mm-hmm.
plan.
Mm-hmm.
And she got the gun and she tried to shoot him, but the gun didn't fire off.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm standing there watching this whole thing, and I'm thinking to myself that I'm going to lose both of my parents if this happens.
Mm-hmm.
If she shoots him, she's going to jail, and if
Mm-hmm.
she shoots him, he's going to die.
Mm-hmm.
And what's going to happen to me? And so at that point, I'm blaming myself for telling, because at least the 5 years that I didn't tell, she wasn't harmed.
I want to ask the ladies a question. Do you think this is a normal response for the victim to blame themselves when they see potentially they're going to lose both their parents? What do you all think about that?
Absolutely. Makes plenty of sense
Mm-hmm.
because she's thinking from a child's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Even though you were what, 16 at that time?
Mm-hmm.
Um, one of the things about trauma, oftentimes, I would say most of the time, when the trauma starts, a child is frozen at
Mm-hmm.
that age in
Mm-hmm.
terms of being intellectual and being able to understand things because the trauma stunts their ability to even process.
Mm-hmm.
So that
Mm-hmm.
makes plenty of sense.
If I can get in here and ask a question,
Please.
Tibby, you have been dealing with that for so long. I'm wondering what was going on, if you can recall in your mind when you finally decided, I can't take it anymore. It's time for me to, I need, was there anything that precipitated that?
Mm.
Well, I think that my fear was compounded
Mm.
when I made the decision to do that, because mind you, the thing that kept me quiet for those 5 years was the threat that something that would happen to her. And so just contemplating the idea of me going through with that in the back of my mind, I'm wondering, is something really going to happen? Like, is he really going to do something to her? Is she going to be safe after I say it? Is this the right thing to do? Should I
Mm.
just, take it back what I said? I thought
Well, I
about that.
want
I
to go
thought
back
about
before
taking it
that
back.
though. When you made the decision to say something to her, what was going on with you? If you can recall when you said, I've got to tell my mother.
I was to a point where 5 years of that,
Mm.
5 years of that, I was just sick and tired. And now I'm a teenager, and I got a body. I'm looking at myself and I'm going, this is just all wrong. I can't continue to be quiet. I know
Mm.
I'm supposed to. I know he's threatening me that what's going to happen if I don't, but I just couldn't go another day. And so for me, it was a coin toss. I said, hey, if something happens, I guess this is going to be the day. I had just made up my mind. That was it. This was it. And I had decided I got to be prepared for whatever the fallout is going to be. I had made a decision. I mean, and once I knew, I opened my mouth, whew, I knew I wasn't going to be able to take it back. And so
Mm-hmm.
I was going to have to speak it, own it, wear it, and say it. And I knew that was going to change everything. I just didn't know how much.
So
But
Tippy,
that's
you
what
know
I
what? At
told
16,
myself.
you graduated school at what age?
At 16, I
Yeah.
graduated early.
Yeah. So you were a smart little cookie. That's for sure.
A little bit.
Graduating at 16. I'd like to take it just a few minutes, acknowledge the comments from one of our viewers. Chanel says, I want to acknowledge the strength it takes to open up about and survive through the impact of sexual abuse. You are not alone, and your courage in sharing your story is remarkable. Remember, healing is a journey, and there are many others around you and communities ready to support you. Your resilience is inspiring, and I hope you find the strength to continue on your
Wow.
path towards recovery. Thank you, Chanel, for your comments, and welcome to, I would say, Industry of Blast. Welcome to Legacy of Lies. Go ahead, Timmy.
Wow. Wow. Woo. Thank you. That was very sweet and kind of you. I think after that point, I moved to a place of anger because I saw
Mm.
my mama was angry. And then I saw our lives begin to change. Um, once she had confronted him and she could look and tell that he wasn't being honest, everything crumbled from there. And so now he's gone. Um, finances are gone. And
Do
we're
you think
changing
that's
as
why a
a
lot of
person.
women don't tell because of the finances in the home?
I know that's a big reason why, because once me and my mom talked about it, she told me about abuse that she had gone through.
Mm.
And I couldn't, and she stayed. And then she explained to me that, she was a teenager when she got married. She was still a kid.
Mm.
She didn't really understand the ramifications. There was fear involved as well. And so she stayed. And for that reason, I got angrier and angrier. And that made me want to tell, because
Wow.
I was just like, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not
Wow.
gonna be tormented. And then I have to look at you, looking at me like I'm doing something wrong and watching
Mhm.
me. And I watched him over some years watch the way I looked, to see if I was going to say something in a certain
Wow.
circumstance, or I could feel that edge, where, and he was looking to see, if I was with my friends, if something was going to slip out, and I just lived under the big umbrella of, it was just smoke, and I was just tired, and I just decided I didn't want to do it anymore.
You know what, ladies? We are going to take a break, but before we do, when we come back, we're going to dive into some things that I know was in her book. We can already tell some of this juicy part because I want to know what happened to him, and we can already make them go buy your book. So we're going to talk about some of the things that I know that's in that book that is like, what? So we're going to take just about 30 seconds for a commercial break, and we'll be right back.
Stay tuned for more jaw-dropping revelations and captivating stories. Industry on Blast will be right back, ready to uncover the secrets of the industry that would leave you speechless. Don't miss a moment. Thank you for listening to Industry on Blast. We'll be back shortly with more eye-opening discussions, incredible stories, and inspiring guests. Your journey into the depths of the industry continues soon.
So, where you go, Timmy?
I was going to get my charger.
No, you're fine. You're fine. So, I know about the book. I'm pretty intimately acquainted with this book. So I want to tell some of the juicy part. So your father was murdered, in my opinion. I want you to tell them what happened.
He was married to someone who was significantly younger than him.
How old was she?
She was 2 years older than me.
Wow.
So he was a pedophile. Got her when she first got out of high school. And he had a business, and he groomed her in that business, and she learned a lot about the business, and she worked in every capacity over a period of 30 years. He was with her that many years. He didn't marry her, and she became angry over the years, I guess because of her devotion and to him and working. She became angry because he didn't marry her, and then he became terminally ill. And when he became
was he really terminally ill, or was it because of what she was doing that caused him to be terminally ill? Which one was it?
He had cancer.
Okay.
Yes, cancer. Okay. So he was terminally ill. But she used that to take charge of his finances. No, that's not it. To get his finances and to just take a hold of his bank account and whatnot. And she took over his entire company. And at that time, nobody knew that she was medicating him, over medicating him.
She was poisoning him. Just say it like it was. She was poisoning him.
She was poisoning him. And so with that being said, it was a slow process. So nobody would really know because he was terminally ill with cancer. So we couldn't really tell if it was the cancer that was really making him, not be cognitive or something else. We couldn't fathom that somebody else would do something like that. So in our minds, we couldn't imagine, but I start getting some red flags, some things I started seeing in her. And I knew that something was going on, but I couldn't prove it.
And so when you got the call from a reporter from our local newspaper that told you what? Tell us that.
He asked me if he could meet me, and I had a stepsister, and we met with him, and he showed us toxicology reports that said that he had enough morphine and Halidon to kill an elephant. And so we had noticed before he passed away that he would be totally lethargic, like you could go like this, and there would be no reaction or no response. And we thought that was strange. And so later he told us that she had been over medicating him and that he had proof to substantiate it. I knew something.
And look at Lisa's face. Lisa, you okay? She like, what the what?
So she murdered him. And it happened in the most horrific kind of way because she asked me for pictures.
Mm-hmm. He was still
Before
living at this point.
he was still living at that point, and I was like, "Why would I give you pictures? He's still alive." And about 2 hours later, she called. She said, "He's dead. Now I need the pictures." It was so sterile and
But
so
then, even with that, was he really dead?
well. That's what they said. So I went to see him,
Okay.
and I asked for, back then they would put a tag on your toe. The coroner would put a tag on your toe, and it would say the time of death. And so
Mm-hmm.
immediately I came in pulling off the sheets, looking for the tag on his toe, and there was none. And I
Mm-hmm.
asked her what was his time of death, and
Mm-hmm.
she stuttered over her words, and I knew that she had not called the coroner's office. And so at that time, I called and found out that she had not. And so at that time, she, called in the undertakers, and they came to take his body away. And I felt that something very eerie and strange and dark what was going on. I just couldn't prove it. But the newspaper reporter validated all of my suspicions. Not, I didn't know that she had done that, but I knew that something horrific had happened. And he gave us all this proof. And so now I'm really happy because we're going to go after her. I got a handwriting specialist to, check out her handwriting to see if she'd been writing checks and those kind
Mm-hmm.
of things. And I just knew, I said, oh, we're going to get to the bottom of this. She's going to pay for what she's done.
And
And
what happened to her?
she was murdered.
She was murdered
She was murdered. So
by.
now I'm in court, in probate court for 7 years.
Wait a minute. You skipped a whole lot. She was murdered by who?
Her sister's boyfriend murdered her.
And how
Stabbed
did he
her.
murder her?
He stabbed her 64 times.
Do y'all see why I said this needs to be a Netflix docuseries?
Why did he do it? Come on now.
Come on.
I wasn't there, but there was talk of how she was bragging after he had passed away about the money that she had gotten from his estate. And she was traveling and kind of bragging about it. And her sister was, she was taking her with her, and so he felt alienated, I'm sure, from the sister's relationship because now they had money. And she was telling him, she don't need you. And I think at some point they must have had some words, because if you stab somebody 4 times, you are
Right.
out
You
of
tired.
energy. Something that would make you keep the momentum 20, 40, 55. I mean, we can't even fathom that, because you'd be out of breath at 20. And so something she said or did angered him to the point that he took her life in the most horrendous kind of way.
Tibby, I wanted you to share those parts of the story because I want you to see the trajectory of your life as a sexual abuse survivor. How you, at 11 years old, the enemy thought that he was going to cut off your destiny. He thought he was going to cause all this trauma and pain in your life, that you would end up with mental health issues, addicted, estranged from your mother, just tore up the family, right? That's what he thought. But I just want to say to anybody who is watching this, don't ever think God don't see. Because when I tell y'all he see and he know, and just the mere fact of this woman who was poisoning her father ends up being murdered herself. The murderer ends up in prison. You see how the domino effect happens? But, and I hate to say it like this, the enemy's plan against your life didn't work. He might have hired a lot of folks to destroy you, but none of it worked. So I remember the first time I spoke with Tibby on the phone, And I was thinking, I don't know who this woman is. I ended up speaking to her. She inboxed me on Facebook. And when she inboxed me on Facebook, it was like maybe 2 o'clock in the morning when I responded. I responded. We talked for 2 hours, and then we talked to her mother probably for another hour. And it was really one of those things where I knew that God had a plan for her life. Now she said it looks like her internet just went out, but it she had told me that she had been trying to reach out to me and I hadn't responded. Tibby, if you can hear me, if you can go off and come back on, it might help. Yeah. Hold on a second, ladies. And so by the time that I did respond, it was the weekend of Lisa's birthday. You remember that, Lisa?
I absolutely remember that weekend.
It was the weekend of Lisa's birthday, and
Yep.
we had a surprise party for Lisa in Michigan at a mansion on the water. And so we decided I'm going to invite Tibby to come.
Can you see me?
I can see we can't see you, but we can hear you. So yeah, as long as we can hear you.
I'm here. I don't know what's going on, but I'm here. Okay.
Okay.
And so I remember, it was like a women's retreat, really. And so I remember, because I didn't know Tibby. There you are, Tibby. We can see you now. So I didn't know Tibby. And there was such a divine connection that happened. But you could have never told me that the next 3 years would be like it has been. Tibby was not an author when I met her. Didn't even probably want to share the story to the detail that did you want to do that?
No.
She's like, no. Where were you at when I met you? Why did you reach out?
I'm gonna tell you, this was an act of the Holy Spirit. I don't even know why I was so adamant about wanting to reach her. I wanted to share my story with her, and I don't know why. I read magazines. I saw her face on magazines. And once I had seen her 3 or 4 magazines, I thought, oh my gosh, this woman, she's not going to take the time to talk to me. And I just was relentless. I took the magazines, I read them from cover to cover. And I think I waited about a month or so. I didn't reach out right away because I was so nervous. Just to try to talk to her. And finally, we did talk. And it was the divine connection. I don't even know what made me not drop the ball in the middle of the process, because I waited a month to call her back. But the Holy Spirit just says, you need to make a connection with this woman. I had no clue why. None whatsoever.
Wow.
So Tibby, I'm listening to you, and there's so much that I need to read the book right now. I need to understand. But a few things that you said. One, I'm so thankful for your spirit man that told you to go into God's house, to go into the church. I just need to take it back to where something said, I got to get out of here. And I need my safe haven. So already your spirit man was already protecting you and already, planting that seed, right, of where your refuge and where your help will come from. So the fact that you were able to go to the church when your father was a man of the cloth, and you would have those experiences and then have to go into that building and play this role, right? But when it got real, that was still your safe haven. I'm just so thankful for your spirit man, even at 11, that understood that God was going to be your refuge, because that's what he's been. Fast forward, something else really stood out to me. The woman your father married was 2 years older than you. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, ma'am.
And then I heard the word I've been waiting to hear all night. He groomed her. Those were your words. So initially when we were speaking, all I kept hearing in my mind was education, education, education. I'm very big on educating the roles. What are the roles of the family? And providing that safe space to let children know most perpetrators will use threats of harm against loved ones in order to continue to antagonize or to abuse their victims. That's just something that most of them do. If you tell, I'm going to hurt your mother, I'm going to hurt your sister, I'm going to hurt your brother. So you have all of these things. Now, I'm hearing that this woman was 2 years older than you. She was groomed and then served under him for 30 years. We can't even imagine what was taking place,
Mhm.
right? And so now we got there. So that's a whole different sector that we haven't even tapped into. And then to have her be murdered by her sister's boyfriend, again, not knowing anything, not jumping to conclusions, but the advocate in me is red flag, red flag, red flag. Because of
Mhm.
the brutality, the way that she was taken 60 something times, there was an anger
Ooh.
deeply rooted in that person who was able to take her. And it makes me wonder if the sister was being abused. And when they
Mm.
came into the money, there were resources and things were cut off. Again, I don't know the story, so I don't want to make it up and I don't want to add
Mhm.
to. I'm just thinking of all the different ways that the enemy tried to play with everybody involved. And I didn't want to skip past that because there's that was victimization right there. Her only being two
It
years
was.
older than
It
you, right?
absolutely,
Everything he couldn't do to you,
absolutely.
he did to her more than likely.
Mm, mm, mm.
So
In
I didn't want to skip
retrospect,
that part.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
And so now I please tell us how to get your book, because not only do I want to read it to learn more about your story, but these are the stories that are so important to tell. Thank you for being
Mhm.
brave and courageous and for reaching out to Marlene and for telling your story and standing in your truth, right? And not allowing the enemy to trick you that it's shame, because it's not. It's actually notable and admirable that you're
Yes.
able to do this, because someone's child might not wait 5 years to tell mom, right? Someone might not
Mhm.
marry this man and I'm only 2 years older than his daughter, right? Because those are red flags. But without education
Mhm.
on abuse and grooming and all of these things, then it's very easy for someone to fall prey. But by you sharing your story, you're given the opportunity to
Mm.
break this curse and to keep it from happening
You're
to somebody
welcome.
else. So thank you.
As I look back now that I'm an adult, and me and this woman didn't get along, even though we were close in age. Now that I think about what her life must have been
Mm.
to be in direct contact with somebody that had that much control over her life. I mean, he paid her. She worked for his company over her finances.
Mm.
You know, he was dictating policy in her life. And I can't imagine what that was like for her to stay in the relationship for 30 years and he did not marry her. So all the anger that she had for being, faithful and working in his business and, just looking out for him and doing all the things that she did,
Mm.
uh, not being married, but she was doing the role of everything, And so, what that could have been like for her. So, she had a lot of anger in her because we don't know what it was like behind closed doors with
Mhm.
him, but I do.
Mhm.
I do.
Mhm.
So, with that being said, I know it had to be horrible for her at times. The
Mhm.
only difference was she was willing, she wanted to. I was fighting tooth and nail because I didn't want to,
Mhm.
but again, she was a young girl and she was vulnerable and innocent too. So he took advantage of her. And the biggest thing of all this is we've got to be able to show our young ladies what those red flags are.
Yeah.
You need to know what it looks like. If somebody says they feel uncomfortable being around Uncle George, you as a parent, you need to look at that. She's feeling something underneath. There's an undercurrent. There's something in her that's making her feel uncomfortable in her spirit. And we need to hear that when those kids say that. When they say that, something feels creepy or whatever, we need to look at it, because usually that really does mean something. And we
Yeah.
don't need to take it lightly at all, because your child can be at risk with somebody you are entrusting them to, and they're doing all kind of things to them, and we think it's okay. We think that there was somebody they can trust.
Tibby, I'm just thinking about my grandson one day told me, please don't ever leave me home with so and so. And I didn't. But when I think about, he was so fearful of this woman. It was a woman. He was so fearful of that woman, and he never told us why he was fearful of her. But trust me, I wasn't taking no chances. I wasn't leaving mine there with her. But let's talk about the red flags. What are some of those red flags that anyone can answer? What are some of those red flags that parents need to be looking for, that caretakers need to be looking for? What are some of the red flags?
I'm going to let you guys do that before I say anything.
Okay. Ladies?
Okay, so I know some are, the unnatural caring of the child, the unnatural closeness quickly of the child. We have to, like you said, be careful of who we're dating, who we have in our home temporarily. Someone need help and we let them stay here for a little while, and we just, you don't know who you know until they move in with you a lot of times, but definitely the instantaneous closeness, where you're like, oh, I just got a good kid. Of course they're going to be, no.
Tippy used the word grooming. And so we know some of the grooming tactics are gifts, buying kids stuff, taking them to eat, or just giving them money. All of that stuff that an innocent kid would look like, oh, they so cool, they so this and so they so that. They don't understand that they're being groomed. But for an adult, when you see a child that has gone from, you're not buying her $80 pants or $300 tennis shoes or whatever. So when you begin to see those things, those are definitely red flags.
I can speak to the red flags that I didn't see when my daughter was being abused. And that was her stepfather, my husband, was always buying her things. She was the quote unquote favorite. And as a matter of fact, it had got to the point where his family, when I divorced him, still not knowing that he had been abusing her, but when his family said, I hope Lisa doesn't keep Nikki from him because they have a special relationship.
Ooh.
His family.
Wow.
Yeah. So what Danielle was saying was absolutely on point. And I didn't see it. I didn't. I know that I didn't see it. And then I even had some family members that said, at least I wish we had known some things to look for. So I'm really glad that you're asking this question. There are quite a few. And sometimes it's just your child might even come close to you when certain people are around. They want to be in your company, your care, your protection under your wings during that time. I did not see that with my daughter, but every child is different. Every child is different. Now, for some children, they might start complaining about their stomach hurting.
So to that point, Lisa, I was just looking at the comments, and one of our listeners is saying one red flag that no one called in my life was bedwetting until I was 18 years old.
That's very much so. Bedwetting, infections, anytime continual. Like I will still want to go back to that, especially for our younger children. The ones that are elementary school. Many times they'll talk about their stomach is hurting and there's nothing going on, but and even in school they'll space out. Now, Tibby did really well in school. My daughter did really well in school, but everybody handles it differently. So these are just some of the things to look for.
We have another comment from Chanel. She says behavioral changes, sudden shifts in behavior, such as becoming withdrawn, anxious, or excessively clingy, regression to earlier behaviors like bedwetting or thumb sucking, aggressive or sexually explicit behavior that is inappropriate for their age. The
There
emotional
was something that Tibby was saying that hit her. What was that, Tibby?
I was saying, you mentioned the fact I was good academically, but I sucked my thumb until I was grown.
Wow.
You know, totally grown,
Wow.
holding on to the pillow. You know, that security,
That comfort.
that
Soothing.
comfort. You know, and then when I outgrew that, then it moved to food, and then it moved to that addiction place, and then everything spiraled out of control for me at that point in time. Everything was a black hole after that. It was that part was the darkest time in my life.
You know, I want to say something about that. I was watching that program, 600-Pound Life.
Mm.
Every single person that I've seen them, every single person had been abused without fail.
Wow.
Every single person, whether it was a man or a woman, that whenever I've watched that program, they had all been sexually, and not just abused, they had been sexually abused.
Mm.
So when you say that, there's something about that comfort that wherever they find that comfort. So yeah, I'm glad you said that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ladies, we have 4 minutes left in the show. Are there any closing comments? Tibby, we're going to come back to you. Are there any closing comments that you all want to share?
I do. And I just want to say there's something about having the courage to tell. That's why this program is so important. That's why Tibby's story and all of our stories are so important. And that we give each other the courage to tell, the space to tell, and that we support. Sometimes it's nothing but holding a hand and saying, I'll be with you while you do this. But we have to support one another and not shame one another, which we know that was one of the issues before. So I really applaud Tibby. I definitely will be getting your book, and I want to share everything that you're doing. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Anyone else?
I kind of wanted to double back on something that Tibby said about how when she found out about the new girlfriend, you know, killing her father, you know, poisoning him, how they wanted to help to find out what happened to him on his side, you know, vindicating him. And our natural instinct is to protect our parents still. That is our natural instinct. It does not matter what they do to us.
Yep.
What we do to, you know, to our children. Fortunately, unfortunately, right? That does not matter. It is still a natural instinct in us. And so because of that, you know, she chose to fight still. You know what I mean? He's still her father, still her blood. That's still her, no matter what happened, you know, that's still who he is to her in her life. And so I definitely want people to hear that, because we can't shame her because she wanted to vindicate him. We cannot
Right. Let me tell you something. It don't matter how bad a parent is. I can talk about them, but you better not. Okay, you better not. That's just how we do.
And that, but it puts us in a thing where she could be shamed for that, and so that is why I spoke on it, because it hit my spirit immediately when she said it, because you can hear that. What? Why would you even do that? That doesn't even make sense.
God, that was the hardest part.
You know, and I know it was, and I know it was.
I can't even put that part in the words.
It hit my spirit.
Goodness. The shame that's attached to that kind of thing, I promise you, I cannot put it into words. The other reason why I couldn't tell is I couldn't formulate the words out of my mouth. Who was I going to tell somebody that first of all, that it happened to me, period. But then to say that my father, how do you say that to somebody? Right. What kind of words come out of your mouth? How do you make it sound? I mean, everything around that sounds creepy and dark and black. And then I remember one time coming out saying it to someone that was connected to the church. How could you do such a thing? How could you make up such a lie? How could you, and when that
Right. That
I
shut you
reverted,
back. Well, yeah.
honey,
Yeah,
that set
yeah,
me straight back. I went all the way back to,
yeah.
because I felt like, if I'm not believed,
Mm.
if I'm not believed by people that are close to me, that say, well, how could you make up a certain thing like that? You need to see a psychiatrist. We need to make an appointment for you,
Mm-hmm.
because you need to get tested. We need to find out what's wrong with you. And from that point on, and that all happened around the time that I ran away. Because see, that's what was going on with someone. You need to do this and you need to do it. And I'm like, really?
Mm-hmm.
And at that point in time, I was confused. I was perplexed. He was gone then. He wasn't living in the house when I ran away. He was gone. But I want you to understand the rainfall from all that was coming down. And even though he was gone, physically he was gone, a whole nother cyclone tornado came through my life, through my house when he left. You said this even with my mother until she really understood. She said she let him go immediately. She did not question one thing. It was that relationship was done. She filed for divorce, but she still looked at me like, I don't understand why you didn't tell. Why didn't you tell me? I could have helped you. Why didn't you do? And she didn't understand for years. That's a whole nother story. That's a whole nother talk show about my mother's involvement, how I made it back, because she influenced how I navigated through this too.
That's part of that residue that we talked about last week.
Yep.
That's part of that residue right there.
But you know what? That's also a part of us not sharing our stories with our children. Had she known about that a lot sooner, it would have made a difference. It would have changed that whole dynamic. So when I go around and I'm talking to people who are in their 70s, 80s, I had one lady
70s and 80s
that have never shared with their children what happened to them. So we need to break this whole secrecy, this silence.
Yes.
That is so real. That is so real, because as I was writing the book, and my mom was right there with me, and of course, when I told her, I didn't go into deep, dark details what happened. I just let it be known that inappropriate touch was happening. I didn't give her all the bells and whistles. And so when I was writing the book and she started to hear me talk and watch me write and kind of peep over my shoulder to see, she was like, oh my God, and then she started to tell me the deep, dark secrets in that marriage, things that were going on, because she was young when she married him. And so guess what? The same thing was going, that process. He groomed her too. She was 16 when she got married. That process recycled itself over and over and over and over with different young ladies that he met over the course of my lifetime. Her when she was young.
My goodness.
And so that you're talking about generations of this behavior, him doing it and getting away with it. And he went to his grave. He didn't get away. He didn't get away because God stopped him.
Ooh.
But I'm saying here on earth, it wasn't just me.
Wow.
It wasn't just me.
Wow. Ladies, I'd like to thank you for tonight. This has been jaw-dropping, okay? Jaw-dropping. If you want to reach out to Tibby, you can do so at tportersource@gmail.com. There's her email address. You can also get the book on Amazon.com, Broken Pieces. Or you can reach out to her if you want to get the book. If you have any questions for her, feel free to reach out to tportersource@gmail.com. For next week. Oh, wait a minute. We have an announcement. Keisha. Unmute yourself. We got an announcement.
Yes.
Did you forget? She forgot. Okay. Keisha, how did you forget?
I think so.
The young lady. There's a young lady whose mother was a survivor.
Oh, no. Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Go
Thank
ahead.
you, thank you, guys. When you wear many hats, right? You have to and
Yeah.
have many conversations. You have to
Yeah.
plug it in. So I was
Yeah.
missing my plug. But thank you, Dr. Carson. So on January 1st, I encountered a young lady who I know well, and I know the family. She is the daughter of a mother who was trafficked and also raped, excuse me, by a family member, trafficked and also harmed by a family member. And she is a young person who has now found herself in a similar situation. And she gave birth to her baby on the 1st of this year, January 1st of 2024. The child is a product of assault. And we are looking to support her to raise education and awareness. We talked about sharing those stories. A lot of things that she's now experiencing, her mother experienced when she was in foster care and when she was being abused. And because those things weren't shared, similar to what we're talking about, now it has passed down to another generation. And she's held this her entire pregnancy as well. And so when I went to provide some support, she was able to share with me exactly what happened and how we got here. And so, what I would like to do is extend the call for support to this community. We're going to be raising funds to help support her. She was able to get out of the volatile relationship that she was in. And I can't really call it a relationship because she did not quite know this person. They were sharing space in a group home when this happened to her. And now we would like to rally around this young mother who is a survivor herself and also the daughter of a survivor. And so, if you are interested in learning more about how to support this young woman, you can email me at advocate at acecommunityhouse.org. My website is acecommunityhouse.org. You can send me a message there. But we're going to take the next few weeks and just really love on this young woman who also was so courageous to be able to share her story and her experience. And she's saying, no more, not my child. It happened to my mother, and this happened to me. She said, but not my child. And I want to empower and support her. So if you would like to join me in doing that, again, we're going to be raising some funds and some awareness. You can do that by emailing me at advocate@acecommunityhouse.org.
And so this young mother, who this is her first child, she is a young lady. She's going to need things for her baby, whether it's diapers, blankets. She's going to need stuff. And so if you want to make a donation, you can do so through acecommunityhouse.org. They have a PayPal listed there where you can donate. And look, $5, $10, no amount is too small. But we just want to show the lady that there is a community of people out here that do care and will offer support. All right, ladies, this has been an amazing show. But next week, who's next week? Danielle. Danielle, tell us, Danielle, just take 2 minutes. Tell us a little bit about you have a book. Is that correct? What's your
I
book
do.
called? What's your book called?
Yesterday's tomorrow.
What is Yesterday's Tomorrow about?
Yesterday's tomorrow is about me surviving child abuse. I do not talk about sexual abuse in that book. Book two will have because it happened after the child abuse. So it is a series book. So part two will be out, but I have a docudrama out that does discuss sexual assault that happened to me. So yes,
Has it already been produced?
the
The
docudrama.
docudrama.
Yes,
Can you
out.
send me a trailer?
Yes, it has been out
Okay.
since 2018. It's
Oh,
called Don't Be
perfect.
Quiet, which is the name of my movement as well. Um,
What's
I
your name? What's the name of your movement? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Don't Be Quiet.
Don't be quiet. We ain't
Yes.
big no more.
Yeah. So yeah, the docudrama came out in 2018. I toured, film festivals and won some awards and everything to get the message out there. That is what it is about.
Very, very excited to hear your story on next week. Definitely excited to see how we can support you and get that book out as well. And I want to see the docudrama. So, and I think Tibby's probably interested in knowing how you did it because she is all into that film. She all into that. So y'all probably got a whole lot to talk about. Ladies, I want to thank you tonight for
Before
sharing.
you go,
Okay.
please go ahead and tell us a little bit about what this BLAST is. What
BLAST
it stands
is
for.
So BLAST is Black Leaders Against Sex Trafficking. It's an organization that I spearhead. I'm the CEO of the organization. But BLAST is about specifically offering services to people of color. That is something I've been in this movement for a very, very long time. And actually, I asked someone at the White House today, is there any other organization in our country that is a national organization that serves people of color? And they said, no, there's not one but us. That's really sad because we've only been here for less than a year. That is really sad to me, but that's what BLAST is all about. And trust me, when I tell y'all BLAST is on the move and we got some things planned, I won't even get ahead of myself in telling all that, but thank you.
Tell us also what industry is on BLAST. I like the name.
Well, tonight in the industry is on BLAST is childhood sexual abuse. So there's so many different industries that we will actually put on BLAST. And when I first started industry on BLAST, I was thinking about putting people on BLAST, putting organizations on BLAST, because I think it's a shame that people of color don't get support. I think it's a shame that we don't get funded. I think it's horrible that the people that are victims of whether it be sexual assault, I got to watch what I say because this is on Facebook and they'll take it down. Whether it's SAR, HTN, whether it's any of those things, if we're not getting the support and help we need, what do you think happens? It creates a cycle and we stay into that and we stay in that abuse. And so I just think it's time to put some people, some organizations, and some agencies on BLAST. And yeah, y'all don't even want to get me started because that's what we're doing. But you know what? I think God is exposing so much. They all on BLAST, okay? God is exposing so much that I didn't even have to put them on BLAST because God put them on BLAST. So I want to thank you all. You can visit our website at blastmovement.org. blastmovement.org. There's a ton of resources and information on the website. You can check us out there. Until next Friday at 7 p.m., I want to say God bless you all. Thank you for joining us tonight, and keep us all in your prayers. God bless.
That concludes another mind-blowing episode of Industry on Blast. Thank you for joining us on this riveting exploration of the industry's secrets. Be sure to subscribe and never miss an episode as we continue to unveil the truth. Visit our website at www.blastnetwork.com to catch up on previous episodes and stay connected. If you have a story to share or are interested in becoming a sponsor or guest, we want to hear from you. Together, we can ignite change and create a world free from the shadows. This is Industry on Blast, signing off. Keep shining a light on the truth.